So we said before previously that water accounts roughly for 60% of the male body weight and 50% of the female body weight, and most of that is contained in the intracellular fluid inside the cells. Water is 99% of the fluid outside the cells in the extracellular fluid, and it is an essential ingredient of cytosol, which is the intracellular fluid. And all cellular operations rely on water. Water is involved in the diffusion of gases, nutrients, and waste products. So it's vital for our body to work properly, which is why we need water to live. The body must maintain normal volume and composition of both extracellular fluid and intracellular fluid. So extracellular fluid is the fluid outside of the body cells, and intracellular fluid is that fluid that's contained within the cells. So to help in maintain the concentration within the extracellular fluid and the intracellular fluid, the solutes within the fluid are very different to intra and extracellular. So the amount of electrolytes inside the cell is very different to what is outside the cell. Take for example potassium. Potassium is 160 millimoles per litre in the intracellular fluid. However, it has only a reading of 4 in the extracellular fluid. Sodium is the other way around. Sodium inside the cell is very low, but outside the cell it is 140 millimoles per litre. Then we have sulfates and chloride and protein. You can see that protein is higher inside the cell than outside the cell. So here we have an example. So here we have a red line representing the plasma membrane, and then we have so that's the intracellular environment, and then we have the extracellular fluid. So metabolic water is water that is made from the byproduct of chemical reactions, so from the hydrolysis of nutrients. So 300 mils of water moves through the plasma membrane out of the intracellular fluid into the extracellular fluid. We also get about 2,000 mils from water absorbed from the digestive epithelium. And we lose about 1,000 mils of water lost in urine. Water is also lost as vapor in respiration. Every time you breathe out, if you put your hand in front of your mouth, you will feel that there is moisture on it and lost off of body surfaces. So we lose about 1 litre and 150 mils from respiration. We lose about 150 mils in feces, and then there is a variable amount of water that is secreted via the sweat glands. So what's in these compartments? So the extracellular compartment is 7% vascular, 18% interstitial, and then 10% connective tissue fluid. The intracellular environment is the intracellular fluid, and you also have the transcellular fluid. So that's how it's balanced. The major subdivision of the extracellular fluid is the interstitial fluid of the peripheral tissues, and then made up by the rest of the plasma or of circulating blood. The major subdivisions of the extracellular fluid, the minor subdivisions of the extracellular fluid are the lymph, the perilymph, and the endolymph. Also the cerebrospinal fluid, the synovial fluid, the serous fluid, which is contained in the pleural cavity, the pericardial cavity, and the peritoneal cavity between the visceral and parietal pleura, and also aqueous humor. Fluid balance is the daily balance between the amount of water gained into the body and the amount of water lost to the environment. And it involves regulating the content and the distribution of body water in the extracellular fluid and the intracellular fluid. The digestive system is the primary source of water gains, plus a small amount, as we saw from the other diagram, from metabolic activity. The system is the primary route through which water is lost. Electrolyte balance is really important. So electrolytes, as we said before, are ionic substances such as potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, chloride, and bicarbonate, or substances which form ions when they dissolve. So electrons are ions released through the dissociation of inorganic compounds, and they can conduct electricity in the solution. So the electrolyte balance, when gains and losses of electrolytes are equal, primarily involves the balancing rates of absorption across the digestive tract and the rates of loss at the kidneys and the sweat glands. So the body is forever catching up or losing or gaining or losing water to maintain homeostasis. There are exchanges that occur among divisions of the extracellular fluid, and that occurs primarily through the endothelial lining of capillaries, from the interstitial spaces to plasma, and through the lymphatic vessels that drain into the venous system. So let's look at the body composition by weight averaged for both sexes and the major body fluid compartments of a 70-kilo person. So we've got solid components of about 31.5 kilos, and the rest of that is in proteins, lipids, minerals, carbohydrates, and then miscellaneous. So now if we look at the composition of water in that same individual, you can see that water makes up 38.5 kilos, so makes up the rest of the person. So most of it is in the intracellular compartment, with part of it being in the extracellular fluids, and being the extracellular fluid is in the interstitial fluid. So that's the fluid around the outsides of the cells, and then it is in the plasma, which is the liquid which carries the formed components through the blood system, and then the which would be the cerebrospinal fluid and the fluid in the pleural cavities, as we spoke about, aqueous humor. Here's a diagram just showing you about the balance. So an adult aged between 18 years and 40 years, we look at they are 60% water, 40% solid, and that 60% water is made up 33% of intracellular fluid inside the cells, and the rest is cellular fluid, with some of it being the 21.5% of it being the fluid surrounding the outside of the cells, and 4.5% being the plasma that carries the formed products around in the bloodstream. And then less than 1% is from other body fluids. So that was for male, and this is for female. So you can see that it's a little bit different, with females having a bit more of the solids than the males. So membrane functions. Now let's talk about how fluids are kept within compartments. So plasma membranes are selectively permeable. Ions enter or leave via specific membrane channels, and the carrier mechanisms move specific ions in or out of the cell. The osmotic concentration of the intracellular fluid and the extracellular fluid is identical. Osmosis eliminates minor differences in concentrations because the plasma membranes are permeable to water. So the basic concepts in the regulation of fluids and electrolytes in the body are that all homeostatic mechanisms that monitor and adjust body fluid composition responds to changes in extracellular fluid, not in intracellular fluid changes. So no receptors directly monitor fluid or electrolyte balance, and cells cannot move water molecules by active transport. The body's water or electrolyte content will rise if the dietary gains exceed the environmental losses. So if I drink more water than I lose in my feces and the urine, then I will retain water inside my body. The opposite will also occur. If I don't drink enough and I actually lose more fluid via urine and feces, then my body will have a net loss of fluid. Okay, so the primary way in which hormones are actually involved in affecting fluid and electrolyte balance. So hormones are chemicals that are secreted by particular organs in the body, travel via the bloodstream, and they affect different organs. So the one that we're going to be looking at today, or the three that we're going to be looking at today, is antidiuretic hormone, aldosterone, and natriuretic peptides. Antidiuretic hormone, just as it's diuresis, it stimulates water conservation at the kidney level. So it reduces the amount of urine that's lost, and it concentrates. And it also stimulates the thirst center. So antidiuretic hormone is released when extracellular fluid level is lower, and the body says, hang on, I don't want to lose any more water. So the hormone is released. It sends messages to the kidneys to say, stop losing so much water through the urine. So it reduces the urinary water loss, and the result is that you, if you then go to the toilet, it's far more concentrated urine. And it also stimulates the thirst center. So you'll be looking to have a drink, hopefully of water. So antidiuretic hormone production results from the osmoreceptors in the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is part of the brain, and it monitors the osmotic concentration of the extracellular fluid. Changes in osmotic concentration alter the osmoreceptor's activity. The osmoreceptor neurons secrete antidiuretic. So antidiuretic hormone is released by the axons of the neurons in the anterior hypothalamus. You'll learn more about it later. Suffice to say, you need to know a bit about it so that it makes out fluid components. So it releases antidiuretic hormone. A fenestrated capillary. We'll be looking at different types of capillaries in week 10, I think. In the neurohypophysis, which is the posterior lobe of the pituitary. The rate of release varies with osmotic concentration. The higher the osmotic concentration, the more antidiuretic hormone is released. So the higher the concentration in the extracellular fluid, which means the more water that the body needs, the more antidiuretic hormone is released. So the more antidiuretic hormone that is released, the more water that will be conserved by the kidneys, and the more concentrated the urine will be when the person does go to the toilet, and the more water-seeking behaviours they will exhibit by wanting to have drinks of water.